Hello. Are you excited to find out what happens to Chatterer the Red Squirrel? Remember what happened last time? He's Buster Bear's climbing up after him. Oh no, what's going to happen? All right, we're going to read chapter 16 called Chatterer the Red Squirrel Jumps for His Life. It isn't very often that Chatterer the Red Squirrel knows fear. That is one reason that he is so often impudent and saucy. But once in a while, a great fear takes possession of him, as when he knows that Shadow the Weasel is looking for him. You see, he knows that Shadow can go wherever he can go. There are very few of the little people of the Green Forest and the Green Meadows who do not know fear at some time or other. But it comes to Chatterer as seldom as to anyone because he is very sure of himself and his ability to hide or run away from danger. But now, as he clung to a little branch near the top of a tall pine tree in the Green Forest and looked down at the big, sharp teeth of Buster Bear drawing nearer and nearer and listened to the deep, angry growls that made his hair stand on end, Chatterer was too frightened to think. If only he had kept his tongue still instead of saying hateful things to Buster Bear. If only he had known that Buster could climb a tree. If only he had chosen a tree near enough to other trees for him to jump across. But he had said hateful things. He had chosen to sit in a tree which stood quite by itself, and Buster Bear could climb. Chatterer was in the worst kind of trouble, and there was no one to blame but himself. That is usually the case with those who get into trouble. Nearer and nearer came Buster Bear, and deeper and angrier sounded his voice. Chatterer gave a little frightened gasp and looked this way and looked that way. What should he do? What could he do? The ground seemed a terrible distance below. If only he had wings like Sammy Jay, but he hadn't. Grrr, growled Buster Bear. I'll teach you manners. I'll teach you to treat your betters with respect. I'll swallow you whole. That's what I'll do. Grrr. Oh, cried Chatterer. Grrr, I'll eat you all up to the last hair on your tail, growled Buster, scrambling a little nearer. Oh, oh, cried Chatterer, and ran out to the very tip of the little branch to which he had been clinging. Now, if Chatterer had only known it, Buster Bear couldn't reach him way up there, because the tree was too small at the top for such a big fellow as Buster. But Chatterer didn't think of that. He gave one more frightened look down at those big teeth. Then he shut his eyes and jumped straight out for the faraway ground. It was a long, long, long way down to the ground, and it certainly looked as if such a little fellow as Chatterer must be killed. But Chatterer had learned from Old Mother Nature that she had given him certain things to help him at just such times, and one of them is the power to spread himself very flat. He did it now. He spread his arms and legs out just as far as he could, and that kept him from falling as fast and as hard as he otherwise would have done, because being spread out so flat that way, the air held him up a little. And then there was his tail, that funny little tail he was so fond of jerking when he scolds. This helped him too. It helped him keep his balance and keep from turning over and over. Down, down, down he sailed and landed on his feet. Of course, he hit the ground pretty hard, and for just a second he quite lost his breath. But it was only a second, and then he was scurrying off as fast as a frightened squirrel could. Buster Bear watched him and grinned. I didn't catch him that time, he growled. but I guess I gave him a good fright and taught him a lesson. And that's the end of that chapter. The next chapter, chapter 17, is Buster Bear Goes Berrying. That's a tongue twister. Say that really fast 10 times. Buster Bear goes berrying. Buster Bear goes berrying. Buster Bear goes berrying. Buster Bear. Woo! Your tongue gets all twisted up. All right. Buster Bear is a great hand to talk to himself when he thinks no one is around to overhear. It's a habit. However, it isn't a bad habit unless it is carried too far. Any habit becomes bad if it is carried too far. Suppose you had a secret, a real secret, something that nobody else knew and that you didn't want anybody else to know. And suppose you had the habit of talking to yourself. You might, without thinking, tell that secret out loud to yourself, and someone might happen to overhear. Then there wouldn't be any secret. That is the way that a habit, which isn't bad in itself, can become bad when it is carried too far. Now, Buster Bear had lived by himself in the great woods so long that this habit of talking to himself had grown and grown. He did it just to keep from being lonesome. Of course, when he came down to the green forest to live, he brought all his habits with him. That is one thing about habits. You always take them with you wherever you go. So Buster brought this habit of talking to himself down to the green forest, where he had many more neighbors than he had in the great woods. Let me see. What is there to tempt my appetite? Said Buster in his deep, grumbly voice. I find my appetite isn't what it ought to be. I need a change. Yes, sir, I need a change. There's something I ought to have at this time of year, and I haven't got it. There's something that I used to have and don't have now. Ha! I know. I need some fresh fruit. That's it, fresh fruit. It must be about berry time now, and I'd forgotten all about it. My, how good some berries would taste. Now, if I were back up there in the great woods, I could have all I could eat. Makes my mouth water just to think of it. There ought to be some up in the old pasture. There ought to be a lot of 'em up there. If I wasn't afraid that someone would see me, I'd go up there. Buster sighed. Then he sighed again. The more he thought about those berries he felt sure were growing in the old pasture, the more he wanted some. It seemed to him that never in all his life had he wanted berries as he did now. He wandered about uneasily. He was hungry for berries and nothing else. By and by he began talking to himself again. If I wasn't afraid of being seen, I'd go up to the old pasture this very minute. Seems as if I could taste those berries. He licked his lips hungrily as he spoke. Then his face brightened. I know what I'll do. I'll go up there at the very first peep of day tomorrow. I can eat all I want and get back to the green forest before there is any danger that Farmer Brown's boy or anyone else I'm afraid of will see me. That's just what I'll do. My, I wish tomorrow morning would hurry up and come. Now, though Buster didn't know it, someone had been listening. And that someone was none other than Sammy Jay. When at last Buster lay down for a nap, Sammy flew away, chuckling to himself. I believe I'll visit the old pasture tomorrow morning myself, thought he. I have an idea that something interesting might happen if Buster doesn't change his mind. Sammy was on the lookout very early the next morning. The first jolly little sunbeams had only reached the Green Meadows and had not started to creep into the Green Forest when he saw a big dark form steal out of the Green Forest where it joins the Old Pasture. It moved very swiftly and silently, as if in a great hurry. Sammy knew who it was. It was Buster Bear, and he was going bearing. Sammy waited a little until he could see better. Then he too started for the Old Pasture. That's the end of the chapter. And the next one is called Somebody Else Goes Bearing. Wonder who that's going to be. We'll have to wait to find out. Have you guys ever read the book Blueberries for Sal? Or is that what it's called? I think it's called Blueberries for Sal. I used to love that book. But it's about a bear, a little bear cub that goes picking wild blueberries, and another little girl named Sal who goes picking for blueberries. And then I won't tell you the rest of the story. You'll have to read it yourself. But it's a good story. It was one of my favorites when I was young. So I will see you next time. Bye.